took a few attempts. That's strong. My God. Very thunderous. That's the best way to describe it. Very thunderous. Right folks, so welcome back to another video. I'm sitting in an RS3 8Y launch edition. Sounds like a bit of deja vu because I've also got a MK8 R next to me. Now you may recall we did a similar comparison to this with both standard vehicles around 7 or 8 months ago. So I thought I'd revisit and do like a part 2 now that the MK8 Rs are tunable and they got a slight bump in power. Now it's actually quite a big moment for the channel because this particular RS3 is a press car. I've been given it for the whole week by the guys at Audi UK. I've never had a press car before, so it's quite exciting times. I'll be honest, it still hasn't really sunk in, so I may end up rambling a bit, but we'll get the comparison done. I'll jump out, get a walk around. But as ever, big thanks to you guys for supporting and viewing the videos on the channel. All right, I've done my best to clean up this area and make it a bit more presentable for the video, but it is what it is. It's winter time in the UK. So yes, RS3 Sportback, finished in Kyle Army Green. This is a launch edition, which is a bit of a UK specific thing. A few of the highlights in the launch edition: you got the panoramic roof, you've got the head-up display. It's got the 19-inch wheels finished in this kind of satin matte finish. This particular car's got the Potenza Sports on there. Got the RS Sports exhaust as usual. It's very flared. They're definitely pumped up the 8Y significantly. Interestingly, on the 8V, the Sportback was wider at the front compared to the saloon, but it just wasn't as pronounced. Whereas now both the saloon and the Sportback do get this wider front end on the 8Y. We've also got these Matrix LED headlights, which do the fancy RS3 dance. Let's see if we can do it now. One-handed. There you go. But yeah, KN71 ONW, how cool is it to see this car here in the backyard? It's pretty much been everywhere, this car. Also, it's a display pic in Audi UK Press's Instagram page. Got details like the black mirrors, got this black trim down there. You can get it in carbon on the carbon black version, of course. But yeah, finished in Kyle Army Green. This definitely looks very Lambo-esque. I can hear V10 in the background. That's either an R8 or Hurricane, so that's very good timing, isn't it? Now, of course, we did show a lot of these details previously, so I'll try and gloss over them because I want to focus on the driving elements today. Bit more of a luxury focused seat, to be honest. They have now introduced bucket seats on the performance version of the RS3, which we unfortunately don't get in the UK. Got the round steering wheel, which loads of people have complained about at this point, so we won't go over that again. Got these RS specific shifter paddles, and yeah, ultimately it's a very simplistic dashboard. We have got physical buttons, which is cool, something that car could learn from. Can't beat having stuff like the traction button, stop start, drive select all down here in a row. Now a quick little walk around of the MK8 R, just in case this is the first video you're watching on the channel. This is my own car, which I've had for about 2 months. Bought it with the intentions of doing like a full tuning series, because since we did the initial comparison, the ECUs are now unlocked on the EA AAA Gen 4. It is a non-performance pack finished in lapis blue. Initially it came with the standard wheels, which thankfully I have right here. They're the Jerez wheels. I've of course switched to an aftermarket set, 245 40 18 all round. The 8Y is on the factory stagger, which is 265 30 19 and 245 35 19, which is up from the 8V stagger, which was 255 and 235 if you had the option. Quickly a look at the interior, which we've done before. This is a lower spec car than the video we did previously. I wasn't too fussed. All I wanted was the panoramic roof option, the paint, and crucially this car has DCC. Quite like the standard seats. They're a bit more sort of sportier looking. We've got sort of suede in the middle, we've got leather on the outside, and we've got this sort of R take on the GTI tartan. Naturally I've got winter mats in it because of winter reasons. And if you can see there, it actually says A3 on there because I nicked them out of the 8V, and because they're all MQB cars here, everything just fits, which is great. I feel like Volkswagen definitely did go for the futuristic vibe, which is pretty cool. I know a lot of people don't enjoy all of this, and I don't think it's a great idea anyway, but having a mix would be nice. This feels a lot more racy in here, which makes sense because that's what R stands for. Yeah, the mix of colors is better than in the 8Y, but the 8Y is more of that luxury take. But personally, if I was going to get an 8Y at some point, I would love to wait or retrofit it with the design pack if they ever give it to us, which strangely some right-hand drive markets do get as well, so it isn't just a left-hand drive thing, but who knows. But yeah, pretty self-explanatory. We'll get the bonnets open on both cars now and get cracking with the main part. Here's one change you're going to notice: a MK8 R with a bonnet strut. No such worries on the 8Y, of course, from factory. Now we'll quickly answer one of the questions which I know is going to appear in the comment section, even though we did touch upon it in the initial comparison, and that's why there's not an S3 8Y parked here instead of an RS3, because naturally they share the same engine, so it'd make more sense to compare it to the Golf R. My reasoning for it was both of these cars have the Magna rear diff, which the S3 8Y doesn't. The R also has bigger brakes compared to the Mark 7, which the S3 8Y doesn't compared to the 8V. So I feel like this is a more of a well-rounded, focused machine compared to the S3. It always was the case, but I feel like on the MK8 R, they've definitely stepped it up. And these also are a bit more expensive than the S3, so they've pitched it a bit different. I suppose it makes sense. This is the best that Volkswagen offers, and that's the best that Audi offers. But yeah, quick recap on some figures anyway. This is a 2.5 litre 5-cylinder turbo, an absolute masterpiece of an engine. As you can tell, I'm a bit of a fanboy there. In stock form, 400 PS, 500 Newton meters, very punchy low down, just an all-round great engine, and it pretty much defines the driving experience. The sound is very reminiscent of the old Group B cars. Of course, these have the OPF now, which they introduced on the later 8Vs, which I had prior to this. It's a DNWC engine code. The outgoing 8V was DNWA. Then that's the Dazzler car, which had no OPF from factory. Now, they haven't actually changed a huge amount with this engine compared to the outgoing OPF 8Vs. And to be honest, it wasn't really needed. They focused more on chassis mods, a diff, making it a bit more playful. Whereas on the Mark-8 R, they changed a lot more compared to the Mark 7. This is still an EA888, the 2-litre TSI with a turbo, but it's a Gen 4. So it has an all-new high-pressure fuel pump. The turbo is completely different. And in terms of some mods that this car has, it's got an even Venturi intake, it's got an operating intercooler from DO88, and it has an aftermarket exhaust from the guys at Cobra Sport. In standard form, these make 320 PS as opposed to 400 PS, and 420 Newton meters as opposed to 500 Newton meters. But this, because we've been tuning it and doing a full series on it, it now produces 458 PS and 600 Newton meters. It would have been cool if I did a video on these two back to back when this was stage 1. Flash only bought this to around low 400s, but timings or whatever, I think we should be okay. Now, ultimately, all of that information aside, the RS3 is always going to be an upgrade from a Golf R. No matter how much power you put in that thing, it's missing the extra cylinder that this has. This has a bit of a mini V10 vibe, and it just totally changes the driving experience. But nonetheless, I thought it'd be cool to do this comparison as a part 2, both sharing the Magna rear diff, but now this with an extra bump in power. Price wise between the two cars, when that was new, being a non-performance pack with a few options, I believe it was around 45. Of course, didn't pay that, it's used with 20,000 miles on it. And these were list price 58-ish, I believe. But yeah, for discussion's sake, let's just say it's around 15k. And on the used market, it's probably even more than that. But I will say that this is a very imposing car, and it does look expensive on the road, whereas this could probably blend in if you take the wheels out of the equation. So yeah, it really depends on what your take is. Even this Mark-8 R on the road, when I drive it around, it's quite a bright thing, especially in that blue. You know it's an R coming down the road, and that you know it's an RS3. Now, whilst we're on the topic of used cars, I just want to take a minute to thank today's video sponsor, Car Vertical. Now, if you're not familiar with Car Vertical, it's a website that allows you to do a full report on any car. All you gotta do is enter registration of the vehicle in question, and it'll tell you whether it's got any mileage issues, whether it's been stolen in the past, whether it's got any accident damage, or if there's any outstanding finance. Now, we've got an example here of a bad report on an Audi RS3, a pre-facelift 8V. And as you can see, it says no issues with mileage theft or outstanding finance, but it has had an accident in the past. And as you scroll down, you can see all the information in more detail. And the best bit is when you head over to the damage section, it actually shows you photos of it at salvage auction. And yeah, look at the state of that, completely obliterated at the front end. You wouldn't want to unknowingly buy that car, would you? So yeah, make sure you don't get burnt in any future purchases. Just do a report so you have total peace of mind. And thankfully, I have got a discount code. It should be on the screen now. It's TRH. It'll save you 20% off your next report. Check it out. The link should be in the description down below. Big thanks to Car Vertical again. But yeah, let's continue with the video. Right, I think that's pretty much it for the walk around element. We'll get a start up on both cars now. Yeah. Right, so I've probably got quite a big grin on my face because I've just had a pretty amazing drive up to these roads. We're in the RS3 first, of course. We've got in RS performance mode, and we're going to stick to that for majority of the drive. As I mentioned in the prior video, you've got RS torque rear, you've got dynamic, the usual one, you've got comfort, you've got auto efficiency. There's loads of modes available. I forgot this thing's got pure manual mode. Now, because both cars have the Magna rear diff, they have got that nice kind of adjustability on the rear axle. The thing with this is they all come with the sort of drift mode, the standard RS torque rear in this case, whereas my Golf R, being the non-performance pack, it's an option. The response on this car is ridiculous, man. Yeah, you can steer with your foot. Look at that. Shuffling power around. Downshifts are right there. Wow. Now, of course, the sound is a bit muted in here, and I find that it does actually sound better with all the windows closed because of the piped in situation. But it's still got that 5-cylinder character where there's just so much torque everywhere. Like, oh, I love it, man. Any 5-cylinder I get in, I tend to act like this. I apologize, but yeah, the front axle on these 8Ys is something, isn't it? I remember even mentioning it in the prior video how before the R used to be always feel a bit sharper than the RS3 at the time, but this, it feels more on its toes than the R now, which is how it should be, really. Look how it is through the swooper. You could really sit on it. It's like, oh, it feels like you could almost just turn it wherever you want to keep adding power, and the car will just continue to do it. It doesn't feel like I'm anywhere near its maximum potential. Not at all. You can see why it did the lap time that it did at the Nürburgring, because this is, yeah, this is impressive. Very thunderous. That's the best way to describe it. Very thunderous. This car's done 15,800 miles, which is nicely running, I'd say. Does feel a bit more opened up compared to that launch edition that I drove in the prior video. That was basically brand new. The tyres feel a bit less darty as well. That was the issue I did have with the prior 8Ys that I've driven, is that when the tyres were new, like, the car felt a bit odd to get accustomed to. This is definitely more my cup of tea. It's so direct, but it's not too twitchy. And that, ironically, was one of the things with the MK8 R that I preferred at the time, because that MK8 R was, you know, had some miles on it. And I thought maybe it's the characteristics of the way they've done the alignment from factory, etc. on this, but that is still there, but it's not as apparent with tyres that are a bit more bedded in. It would be nice to see what this car is like with some 4S's on there, or Goodyear Eagle F1 Super Sports. But I probably would retain the factory stagger. It just makes it a bit more playful. You don't get the impression driving this car that you need more grip, believe me. Audi have done a proper job with this. Now, my only real complaints with the 8Y RS3 is that they have removed a bit of that rawness that was there in the 8V, especially the early Daza cars. Features like, for example, when you downshift it and floor it, you could make that anti-lag-esque noise on the 8V. You can't do it in this, it just basically downshifts. The catch-in rev sound, as I always like to call it. So that's gone. Obviously still is a DQ500, but I'm sure the mech is different. It was different even on those 2019 cars where they couldn't launch properly. But this, believe me, can launch. Took a few attempts. That's strong. My God. Yeah, there's a way these things do it that is different to the Mark 8 as well. They downshift and you fly around the corner. I do miss the central, you know, with all the flashing different coloured lights and whatnot on the 8V. This is very squared, let's say. Yeah, my thoughts on the 8Y remain as I did previously. It's a very impressive machine, and yeah, let's just see what it's like driving the Mark 8 after this, especially with an extra, what, 140 horsepower of a standard that car has. Yeah. Okay folks, so here we are in the Mark 8 R. It has rained a bit, but thankfully the rain is our ally in this particular car, and also the RS3, because of these new rear diffs. It's just a bit more fun. This now with the added power, it's quite tail happy compared to standard, and that's despite having fairly grippy tyres on it, the Goodyear Eagle F1 Super Sport all-round. So yeah, we'll see what's what. Ultimately, this is just a bit of fun, this video. It's not like a serious comparison, because this thing's got a fair bit more power than the RS3 now, so it wouldn't really make sense unless it was stage one. straight off the bat you feel like you sit more upright in the Golf, and everything feels a bit more lighter. The RS3 almost like feels very hunkered down, and you can feel the width of the front end. Yeah, it just feels more narrower when you're going around these corners compared to the RS3. That would be like you'd be up here just demolishing it and thinking, yeah, let's add a bit more power there. All right, let's get some downshifts in. Even then I felt like it was gonna go. I had to feather it. It's interesting now we've got to a state where stage 2 Golf Rs, you need to feather it on the back end, even though it only sends 50% of the power to the back and then it does its shuffling amongst itself. It's very odd. Feels quite rare driven at times. Above 5k is a beast. Yeah, good going. A bit more lean compared to the RS3, that's a bit odd. This is lowered as well. Yeah. Fair play, Audi, man, you've done a good job. See what I mean? It is tail happy. It doesn't even have drift mode and it does all of that. Yeah, of course, if you had drift mode you probably could do all sorts of other fancy angles, but I just love the fact that if you give it a boot you can just get it to just move around. Magna rear diff. You'll love it. If you have this or an RS3, you'll love it. Whether you want to spend 65 or 45, they're fantastic. They are fantastic. I know that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, but every car is expensive now. You can't do that in the 8V and the 7Rs and those kind of cars. You just can't. And you can't in an 8Y S3 either. So that's why I feel like that car is a bit pointless. Right, let's launch it here, straight into the sun. Pretty good going, very efficient. Brakes are decent. They're a bit squidgier than the RS3's ones. Oh, that E888 drone there wasn't great, innit? Yeah, that's the drawbacks you do get having a turbo back exhaust. That 3.5k farty sound, it does happen. And they both have a 7-speed box, but this is a DQ381, a newer gen, and the RS3 still has a DQ500 like it always has done. But unfortunately in the RS3, compared to the old AV, they've taken out some of that DQ500 character, you know, all the catch and rev stuff and the aggression. So they feel very similar now, the way they slur the gear at times. Which is a bit of a shame on the RS3's regard. For this it doesn't really matter because it never was a feature. But yeah, it looks like there's some traffic up ahead. So what we'll do is we'll cut the driving segment here. There's a bunch of different thoughts I've got in my head now, but we'll head home and I'll conclude them all. Right, okay, so we're now back at home. Time for a bit of a conclusion. It's actually been a few days since I've filmed those driving clips, and the reason for that is I wanted to take the 8Y RS3 back out on the road in the more rainy conditions and see what it's like. I also put the car into its torque rear setting, which is like drift mode, which this particular Golf R doesn't have, being a non-performance pack. And I noticed something quite interesting. That was less tail happy in drift or torque rear mode than this is in its standard race. Now, of course, a lot of that is down to the fact that the RS3 runs wider wheels and tyres, and this is a bit more aggressive with the aftermarket tune and having more power and torque. But it was just... it's almost made me not too bothered about getting drift mode retrofitted into this now. Literally all you do is prod on the gas slightly and it's just flicking around, which is pretty cool. Goes to show the extra power has made it quite aggressive. That wouldn't happen in the standard one. But don't get me wrong, the RS3 does go sideways, as many people have demonstrated on the internet. You just have to be a bit more on it and committed. Ultimately, there was never going to be a winner in this test. It was more of an update to the prior video to see how the MK8 R is now with some extra power. It's safe to say it doesn't disappoint, but neither does the RS3. It's a fantastic car, and again, it's a big upgrade over the prior generation. But yeah, that pretty much concludes today's video. Drop a like on it if you did enjoy it. Also subscribe for a lot more content to come. And yeah, massive shout out to AUDI UK again for entrusting me with the 8Y RS3, and hopefully we'll try out some other cars from their press fleet. But yeah, I'll stop talking now. I'll see you guys in a few days time for the next video. And yeah, take care.